what's up, guys? Welcome back to The Collision. Daniel here. And hey, do you guys have an itch to see a futuristic space travel and Adam Driver battle prehistoric dinosaurs from Earth? Because if you do, then I've got the movie for you. 65 just hit theaters, here to scratch that very specific itch. I've seen it, so let's talk about it. So let's say right from the start, they're kind of in a sort of like a cinematic era, just have like mammoth 2.5, 3 hour run times and sort of like endless sequels and expansive world building and like interconnected multimedia cross storytelling. There's something kind of charming and endearing about a movie that takes the approach of 65. This is a movie that promises to offer Adam Driver fighting dinosaurs, and that is precisely what it offers. Kind of nothing more, nothing less than that. And personally, I think this is sort of the film that I kind of think Hollywood needs more of, just sort of self-contained, not trying to do too much. Just go enjoy yourself for an hour and a half at the movie theater, then move on with your life. Don't need to go deep into the backstory or connect it or watch a TV show to understand this part of the movie. It's just sort of a story that I think we should have more of. Although, unfortunately, I don't think that this specific movie is necessarily going to inspire more movies like this. This movie is fine. We'll kind of get into it. I enjoyed this movie for what it was. I probably enjoyed this movie more than other people were, although it is... definitely doesn't transcend anything beyond kind of the base limits of what you might expect from this kind of movie. And one of the things that for me is definitely a positive, if you know my kind of sensibilities, is that this movie is short. This with like a brisk, I think it's like an hour and a half, counting like the end credits. So this movie does not waste a whole lot of time with like table setting. It gets right into the meat. Kind of the opening scene kind of offers some like vague backstory and like establishes kind of who Adam Driver's character is, that he's this sort of human kind of person, but he's from like a different planet, kind of back in like our past, and he has to go on a space exploring mission in order to earn money to help get treatment for his sick daughter, and kind of what the sickness is, or what the purpose of the travel is, or how this civilization connects to the history of Earth. This movie is not interested in answering any of those questions. Kind of literally from like the second scene of this movie, hey, the ship is crashing on Earth, and there's dinosaurs, and run, and we gotta fight dinosaurs. So it kind of gets right into it. Doesn't waste a whole lot of time with a whole lot of like character development or backstory or world building. This is a movie about a guy that has to survive dinosaurs, and that's really all that it attempts to do. And also, again, I am the absolute target audience for these types of films. When like studio Hollywood execs like brainstorm who will buy tickets for this, I am the person that they have in mind. Sort of these survival horror thriller type movies. That lands right in the sweet spot for me. And this is written by the same writers who did A Quiet Place, which is one of my favorite films of the last couple of years, for hitting that same kind of sweet spot. So I do think that while I did ultimately enjoy parts of this movie, and I enjoy going, I definitely didn't hate this movie. I feel like 65 often seems like a first draft of like a much better movie that they just didn't quite get around to making. Because there is some positives in this film, a lot of good pieces for them to play around with and do interesting stuff with. Adam Driver is great because, let's face it, he's Adam Driver, and he is always great. So he's good in this, and the writers too, I think, wisely resist the temptation of just adding unnecessary complexity to a very simple story. They do give a little bit of like backstory, enough to sort of know who this character is and why we should care about it, but they don't get bogged down in trying to add a bunch of drama and other stuff. They do sort of center it in on just hey, this is a simple story, man surviving in the wild against dinosaurs. Don't kind of overdo that. And there is, really, this movie only has two primary characters. There's Adam Driver's character. Then there's sort of the one other known survivor that he discovers from the crash, who's like a young girl named Cora. She's probably like 9 years old or something in that. And their relationship is compelling and particularly because she doesn't speak English. So there's this kind of language barrier between the two characters, which, hey, in a movie with only two people, having one of them not be able to speak English or have them not be able to communicate verbally, I thought was an interesting and kind of a bold choice that I do think kind of pays off. And even the dinosaurs, hey, this movie kind of, you need the dinosaurs to work, and they mostly work, although they are, I think, I'm assuming they're all CGI creations. They kind of look, I don't know if it's just because it's bad CGI or if it's intentional, but they kind of have like a look of like a almost a stop motion, sort of like a classic throwback B movie, Land of the Lost kind of stuff, which I thought did work. So it kind of has all these elements that are prime for this real engaging kind of fun thriller story. Where the problem comes, I think, is this in the execution and just not ever kind of using these pieces in a way that that kind of leads to something more satisfying or more kind of cohesive than just sort of isolated things. And probably the main problem that I had with this movie is that it's just never as fun as a movie about Adam Driver fighting dinosaurs should be. There is like action and like some exciting moments, but it never manages to kind of to maintain any sort of like edge of your seat, hold your breath tension, like the A Quiet Place movies kind of did all throughout. And in some ways, it almost inspired me to have a better appreciation for Steven Spielberg and kind of what he did with his Jurassic Park dinosaur flick. Because kind of unlike at least the original Jurassic Park, 65 is kind of almost more of an action movie than it is a thriller movie. And just characters sort of shooting a bunch of dinosaurs with like a high-powered space gun and sort of fighting dinosaurs isn't as compelling or gripping as kind of characters being hunted and the tension, like the more thrilling aspects. When it's just sort of the action, it just loses some of its sort of just some of the tension and stakes kind of goes away, and it just becomes sort of a mindless sort of guy shooting a gun at kind of mindless, faceless, non-human villains. So there's that, and kind of the lack of escalating stakes, because it seems like dinosaurs just sort of show up whenever they need an action scene. It becomes somewhat of a repetitive kind of template of there's sort of an emotional scene between the two characters, and then a new dinosaur shows up. They got to fight that, got to shoot that, and then that leads to another moment between the characters where they sort of communicate a bit. Then a different dinosaur shows up, and now they got to shoot that dinosaur and fight that dinosaur. And there just doesn't seem like that it's ever really building to anything specific. It's more kind of episodic, kind of all throughout. As far as kind of content going on the surface of this movie, really not a whole lot. The language, there's like a minor or like a handful of maybe more minor profanities. Mostly, maybe exclusively, starting with the letter S, which just sort of gets used as like a gag, but maybe five, six of that, and really nothing beyond that. Sexuality, no sexuality. Violence, there is a little bit of violence, but not in like a gory nature. Humans die from the crash, and there is sort of blood and some of that, but you don't see like in a gory, very gratuitous sense of that. Like it's more just sort of implied, and you sort of see the bodies in the water, but they're not like all opened up or anything like that. And Adam Driver's character, he receives some bloody wounds and stuff through his adventures. Again, nothing too much for that. And some creatures die. Dinos die. So, hey, if you're a dino lover, be prepared for that. And at least the kind of one of those is somewhat bloody, where sort of the skin gets kind of burnt off through like the water of like a geyser that comes up. Again, I didn't find that at all disturbing. This isn't like a gory, violent kind of creature monster movie, but there's a little bit of that. And maybe just sort of the only other thing that sort of as a Christian looking at this that ended up being somewhat much to do about nothing, but kind of the opening title card of this sort of sets the backdrop that this is a story that takes place 65 million years ago, before the advent of humanity. And kind of from that opening, as a Christian, I was just curious if this movie would sort of go the direction of having some kind of twist, or if they're going to play around with, like, is Adam Driver going to get stranded and become Adam? And this is sort of the recontextualized sort of Genesis creation account, or are they going to kind of probe some of like the origins of humanity or anything like that? But the film doesn't do that. Really, other than that kind of opening slide that sets the setting, the fact that this is Earth and that the aliens are actually just dinosaurs really is irrelevant to the plot. It could have been any planet and any and just sort of being alien creatures rather than dinosaurs. So it is sort of this. They use that backdrop for something different, but there really is no sort of further down the road implications from setting this on Earth in our past from a Christian perspective. As far as things going on beneath the surface, themes or worldview, let's be honest. You don't go to a movie like 65 expecting, looking for deep philosophical themes and probing existential questions. You just go to see Adam Driver fight dinosaurs, and that's mostly what you get. There isn't a whole lot of real deep themes. Like, it's not really a science fiction movie in that sense that's probing kind of deep questions. Although probably the one kind of through line theme that is kind of subtle throughout this, but I did think was interesting, is just sort of this sense of shared kind of humanity and like the value of that. Because like I said, one of the most I think creative and interesting decisions in this movie is to have the only two characters in it not be able to verbally communicate and have to kind of survive without being able to really get to know each other or like explain who they are and have a relationship in that way. And it's kind of interesting how the film ends up, kind of how that relationship grows, which I do think is one of the elements in the movie that does work. But just sort of as they learn to sort of make their desires known and communicate, they also kind of come to learn that they do have maybe more in common than they thought they did, that there is sort of this shared humanity. And both characters are kind of grieving from some serious losses in their family and this desire to have family and to have sort of acceptance, and kind of some of their needs end up kind of crossing over and connecting in that way. And even just Adam Driver as sort of a father realizes he's able to relate and kind of understand this young girl in ways based on his own experiences. So I did like that aspect, and just the sort of the follow-up of that hey, and that is something that's worth fighting for. There is value just in humanity and in people. It's kind of at the start of this, after the crash, Adam Driver's character Mills is very much in despair. He sort of starts to send a distress signal, then just cancels it. Doesn't even know if he wants to be rescued, and it's very strongly implied that he's about to commit suicide before discovering that that there is another survivor. And sort of it's that connection with this other human, sort of the shared humanity that they have, that ultimately leads him to sort of rediscover that there is a purpose, that his sort of role as like a protector and as a captain and all that stuff, that he can still fulfill that through this girl. So again, I don't think that the film necessarily probes that super deep or makes a big deal about trying to teach any deep message on that. But I did think it is a wholesome theme for Christians and really just for anyone that kind of goes all throughout this film. So in the end, 65 is not a bad movie. It's just not particularly a good movie either. I think as a thriller about Adam Driver fighting dinosaurs, that it works well enough. I think there is enough sort of heart and kind of human, kind of emotional stakes to prevent it from being entirely just sort of a mindless, kind of empty, hollow action film, while also not having too much sort of backstory and drama that to kind of bog it down or overstay its welcome. And again, I think being an hour and a half or so is the perfect runtime for this movie. It just sort of is, it is sort of what it is. I think, hey, if you're an audience and you're expecting or hoping for something kind of, some clever sci-fi with a lot of, edge your seat tensions, there's not a whole lot for you to sink your teeth into in this movie. But if you're just like me and you got some free time and you got that nagging itch to see Adam Driver fight dinosaurs, then maybe this will scratch that itch. And I do think it is a fine enough movie for what it is. And I do appreciate that it is like an original film and not like, 65 Part 4 or wherever it is. But hey, let me know if you guys see this movie, what you thought of it, if you enjoyed it, if you found it like I did, sort of a diverting, kind of short, just fun adventure with some dinosaurs, or whether you kind of got bored of it and just wanted a little bit more meat to enjoy, or a little more depth or clever thrills or anything. Love to have that conversation with you in the comment section. If you haven't done so, also encourage you guys subscribe to the channel, become a Collider. We've got a lot of videos and reviews and live streams. Would love to have you be a part of that. But most of all, guys, thanks for watching. Stay safe and continue to collide through world for Christ.